Hi, everybody, and welcome. My name is Peter Lucash, and welcome to this virtual workshop on Reset Normal. How do we go from where we are today to have a new normal set of conducting business in the 21st century? Let's start with the premise: normal will never return. This is a very different world, which just got even more very different. The term VUCA, V-U-C-A, stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. This is a term which comes out of the military, has been adopted by a number of folks in management thought leaders and business leadership, which describes the situation we're in and have been and will be as an ongoing basis for all the many reasons which you all know about. But if you understand this mindset, you need to be able to move forward in this mindset in a thoughtful, deliberate manner, but in a way which, understanding that it's a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world out there, you'll be making changes and adjustments as you go along. Working through the pandemic, we have this category of fear. One, how do we make our changes? What is going on? On a personal basis, for ourselves and our family, COVID-19 is a very insidious disease. It is still not completely understood. It is less than 6 months in exposure to humans, and we're still learning in many ways what it is, how it works, how it's transmitted, the degree of spread which has already existed. One of the wild cards here is that something like half the people, maybe more, maybe a little less, who have been exposed to it have no symptoms, but they also may have been transmitting it unknowingly to other people as well. You have that small group who are going to be very, very sick and dying, and they are not necessarily elderly or not necessarily those with pre-existing conditions, underlying conditions. There's other pieces to it. So there's a whole lot of folks working on that, and I think we're seeing the best of American and global ingenuity, and we're seeing the highest degree of cooperation throughout the world in the business and scientific communities in order to find new ways to, identify, treat, and hopefully perhaps prevent COVID-19. Your question undoubtedly is going to be, okay, what about my business model? What do I do? What are my options? How do I move forward in this kind of new world? So I'm going to propose that we have a 3-factor focus here. We should be focusing on engagement, serve, and learn. Those 3 themes: engagement, serve, and learn. And I'm going to deal with these specifically in a few moments. The unknowns out there is the path of COVID-19. It's changing as we speak. Just yesterday, the U.S. government has admitted that some of the initial forecasts were in fact correct, that we're probably looking at least 100,000 people have died in the course, coming in the next few weeks in May. It may range higher. These are many unknowns. The forecasts, these predictions, they really call them forecasts, come from information, and the idea is as new information comes about, these forecasts are being modified. That's how this kinds of forecasting gets done. That's kinds of forward-looking gets done, is you're always getting new information. So that's a situation we're in there, and that's one set of issues. For you and your business model, how you make your function your business, your more immediate concern is what's happening in my markets, what's happening to me, what's happening to my employees, what's happening to my customers and clients, what's happening to my vendors and suppliers. So if your clients and customers, they're being impacted, how can you help them? And it's not necessarily in the traditional, what you've been doing as far as your business. There may be other ways. And there's a lot of variations on that. And that's why we're going to come to the 3rd focus of learn as we go forward. So, okay, why are you here? You're in the right place if your 2020 business plan blew up, which it just did for everybody. What is my new how of business? How am I going to go about doing my business on a day-to-day basis? My customers have changed. My markets have changed. I'm not sure what's going to be possible. I may have trouble getting supplies. People trying to buy webcams was very interesting. When the lockdowns began, You can try ordering an external webcam for a computer. Things have been back ordered for weeks because there was this heavy rush of demand suddenly. A friend of mine was trying to buy one and couldn't get one. I went on and said, wait a second. I tried a couple of sites. I'll be damned. Everybody's back ordered on it. Fortunately, I'm blessed. I have my own camera. You have a sense of financial insecurity, and that's across the board. The Relief Act, which is going out in the U.S. to provide immediate cash relief to many, many people, will have some impact, but it's a small scale. Unemployment is another. There's, I think, 20 or 30 million people. I think it's 30 million people as of today who are filed for unemployment, and there is that additional $600, which is being added to it. It's been extended in many states to include people who have not paid into the unemployment system, such as people who are 1099 employees, people who are self-employed. These folks have not paid into the unemployment system. They traditionally have never been covered by unemployment, but they're getting the benefit anyway. I'm not arguing against it. I'm just saying this is one of the facts which is going on. That's how wide the devastation has been. This is a reminder of the Great Depression, and where federal governments were stepping in finally with President Roosevelt and creating jobs to put people back to work, make things happen. And we see the results of some of that work are still in front of us today. Look closely, some bridges out there, post offices, paintings, art, a lot of buildings, government buildings, private buildings out there, which happened because of the WPA and other government projects in those days. So here we are, and you're standing there as a business owner, as a business leader. What's my best move now? What do we do today? Maybe I'm being allowed to open up my business. Should I open up my business? Should I bring my people back into the office? What's going to be accomplished? I think we have a new sense of digital comfort using tools such as Zoom, Teams, and multitude of other video conferencing services, which enable us to surprisingly not do too bad a job. So this is going to be interesting how this begins to play out. Quickly about me, my name is Peter Lucash. I come out of a volatile, uncertain, ambiguous business, which was the healthcare industry. I started my interest when I was in high school, joined my town's volunteer ambulance corps, and later went to hospital healthcare administration at a large teaching hospital in Brooklyn, 1,000 beds, which is a big place, so over 100,000 visits a year in our emergency room. Over the years, I've worked in consulting firms. I worked for E&Y for several years in the consulting practice. I've worked for other consulting firms and done some private consulting, and began to shift into teaching, training, and strategy work probably about 15, 20 years ago. And nowadays, my principal single place is at Northeastern University, where I'm a professor of the practice. I am half-time. I teach entrepreneurship, management, leadership, organizational behavior, and some strategy courses. I also teach at a couple of other schools. In addition, I'm developing more training, business development, management development, and leadership development programs, principally designed for the small to mid-sized organizations. More about that another time. So I want to put this out together and talk about some of my ideas and how I can provide some assistance. This can help many of you out there. The idea of an OODA mindset. This term came out of also the military. Colonel John Boyd, back in the 50s, came up with the idea of what he dubbed OODA: observe, orient, decide, act. And he talked about it in a sense that when fighter jets are involved in a dogfight, is you want to get into the OODA loop of your enemy to disorient them, to perhaps force them to look at other places, not to be observing properly. And by doing that, they make the errors and position themselves and position yourself in order to shoot down the enemy. But you provide the same language in a similar set of circumstances. This is how you behave, is what I'm offering here. Your mindset being you want to, is a situational assessment. We talk about, okay, where are we? That's your observation. All right, that's where are we standing today? What do we know? There's some things we know, and there's a whole lot we don't know. Okay, we get oriented. What does this mean? This information I have of where we stand, what does this mean? We're seeing some of the businesses being allowed to be opened by some of the governors. Okay, what does this mean? But what's happening with the rates of infection? What's happening? Are people going out? Should I open my businesses? What about my employees? Their children can't be in school. They're not going to be in camp. How are they going to be able to function? Let's say you have a two-wage earner home. If you have such a situation, how do people manage that? All these little things, what kind of supports can you give people? Can people really work from home to a larger extent? Should you rotate your staff maybe 2 days a week in the office, if that's even necessary, or 1 day a week in? How do you handle those matters? So you're interpreting your information, and what does this mean? You can get all this data in. It's the interpretation of the data. That's where the trick is. You then need to decide, but you're deciding in a dynamic manner. In other words, as you get more information, you're going to be making adjustments. You're going to be communicating constantly. You need to be in communication with your people constantly, every day. Could be a 5-minute stand-up meeting. That's quote unquote stand-up meeting. That's fine too. You need to be acting decisively. Give them direction. Work with them cooperatively to give direction of where we want to go, with the understanding that we may have to make adjustments as they feed back more information to you. And this repeats time and again. I did my dissertation on what's called recognition primed decision making. And this is a study done in behalf of the U.S. Army. And as part of the study, they were looking at decision making in high stress, low information, very dynamic emergency situations. And what Gary Klein and his colleagues did was they interviewed, as part of the study, they interviewed something like 35 fire commanders around principally the Midwest, large cities, small cities, what have you. And how do they make decisions? They get to a fire scene. The situation was evolving rapidly. There is danger, perhaps to structure, perhaps to civilians, perhaps to firefighters. So how do they size up the situation, get information, figure out what their options are, make a decision, and execute it? Well, to a person, they're saying, we don't go through the classic model of decision making. We recognize a situation and we make decisions. And as we get more information from our line commanders, the lieutenants commanding and captains commanding individual companies, engine companies, ladder companies, as they get more information being fed to them, as they can visually see what's happening around them, they make adjustments. And one fire chief talked about them being in that his crew was in a brownstone and in the kitchen on a fire, and what they thought was a small kitchen fire, and the commander then pulls those crew out. Just pulls them out. Something's wrong, he's thinking. I don't know what it is, but something's wrong. He recognized something was wrong. It wasn't hot enough, he said. Turns out, the floor collapsed shortly thereafter he pulled his crew out. The fire was underneath in the basement. That's where the main source of the fire was. Did he have definitive information that was the case? No. But he recognized, by virtue of his experience, that's where so-called gut reaction, that's a matter of knowledge how fire works, because he's been through school and training, and experience. That's where gut reaction, that's where intuition comes from. It's not this magical, mythical behavior some people have that they trust their gut. It comes from knowledge and it comes from experience. So we're looking at here, observing, orienting, deciding, and act, and you drawing on other people. You do not know everything. People have different experiences, different training, different knowledge, different insights. Listen to them. You may make a different decision, but listen to them because they're trying to tell you something and they know something too. The idea of restarting. This gets very political, but let's not even go there. When you decide, the challenge in restarting your business, if you've been operating virtually or perhaps pretty much shut down, is that it is a VUCA world out there. Overhanging this is the uncertainty and the fear. Am I starting opening too early? Is it safe to reopen? How much protection can I and should I be doing for my employees? Now, many retail stores have been putting up plastic barriers behind to separate cashiers and staff from customers. Okay, that's one critical piece. What about masks? Getting masks was a problem. What kind of mask? How can you get people? As I write this, Costco is instituting a rule. Everybody, all customers need to wear masks coming into the store, which is kind of a major step for them, for any retail store to do that, to insist everyone's wearing a mask coming in. Mask, if you recall, is really to protect others. It's not you, it's protecting others from germs which you may unknowingly be carrying with you. And that's really the point here. As well as social distancing, limiting the number of customers in a store, actions such as this. This is epidemic 101, epidemiology 101. I also have a public health degree in my background, and I've been thinking about the classic story of John Snow, who identified in the 1650s, I believe it was, a cholera epidemic in London, and was able to really become one of the founders of the concept of epidemiology, studying diseases and disease pattern and infections and how that happens. And he was able to trace, if my recollection is correct, the source of the cholera to really wells, and I think it was one well in particular in London where people were getting their drinking water from. So through all this, we have you as the leader have two things going. It's the ambidextrous leadership concept. You have day-to-day management, and at the same time, you're focusing on the strategy as well. So this is why you need to gather in your people. You may be a small business, you don't have a lot of management depth, but you'd be surprised, and maybe you should be surprised, by the leadership which exists among your people who will step up because they know their jobs. They're committed to it. They're committed to the company. And if they see you being committed to them personally, as well as the business, they'll step up. So this is a time to refresh and regroup and spend time, which hopefully you've been doing if you've been shut down, working on teaching, some training, and practice. How are we going to focus in this world? Spend some of the time now as you begin to open up your business when that time comes on teaching and training, and draw on your people. How can we do things better? How can we separate? How can we keep things safer for us? You don't have to be the font of all ideas. Look to your people. You'd be amazed how many times they've thought about it, but unless they felt welcome to opening up, they didn't do it. As your leader, this is the first of the themes: engagement. What you say matters. Your words matter, and your tone matters. And we've seen this. We're seeing this front and center with our leadership in the United States and throughout the world. Is words matter and tone matters. Number one, take care of your staff. It's not a matter of that you are creating jobs. You create new jobs when you have the business to have the jobs. You don't do it because you're a nice person. So what you want is that your staff is going to be they are your business. Most of your customers, for many of you, never met you, don't even know who you are, but they know who that front person is. They know the person they deal with is. They know who the sales representative is or the customer service rep they've talked to multiple times. And that's fine. That's the point. That enables you to have a much bigger business. They take their direction, they take the principles, they take the strategy, and they execute. And they'll do it when you got good people and you train them and you attend to them. They'll help you. They make your business grow. The idea of stand-up meetings, quote unquote stand-up meetings, short, but make these personal. If you're doing it in person, make sure people separate. If you're doing it if you still have people working at home, do a video meeting. Ask people, and this is where tone is important, is in asking people, how are you doing? We're tough times here. We have our children at home. We're trying to manage them being in schoolwork as well as the business. And my spouse and I have kind of divided things up, our different shifts. How are you doing it? What do you hear? What's going on out there? What's going on out there? What kind of challenges are stressing you? You feeling in the business? Do people have an idea? What are you hearing? What are you seeing? Encourage news, both good and bad. Remember, however, when you're on video, a couple of things people are learning. One is that video is unforgiving. It sees everything. If you're touching your face, the eyes, which we all do many, many times every day, they will see that. As soon as you can, get a good external webcam so it stays focused. When you ask people how they're doing, looking at the camera, paying attention to them. You can't be looking at papers, looking at your phone, which dinged just here, of course. You're focusing on the people and listen to them. Reflect back to them. Again, this is a good time to train people, remind people, talk about some of the things we're doing, some of the things you will be doing. Do people have ideas? What have you been seeing? People have been home. They've been doing lots and lots of things. What's going on? Have you tried new projects? What are you doing with your time? Second theme. First theme is engage. Second theme is to serve. You want to be in front of your customers as much as possible. So you want to stay in touch with them. You might send them an email. Hey, this is not a self-serving. We've all gotten these self-serving emails and videos. Listen, we're concerned. This is what we're doing. Nobody cares what you're doing. They want to know about you and them. Say, we're here. We're preparing to reopen. We know it's going to be different. So we're working to enable you to be able to continue to serve you. Do anybody have any ideas, any needs? Is there some way we can help you now? What about your suppliers? Can they get product? Can they get the products and services you need? Can their people travel? Or if you're looking for supplies, hard goods, where are they coming from? Can they get them still? Or are they being held up or being delayed? Even Amazon was telling people your shipments are going to be delayed. And people were at home. So what were they doing? They were ordering stuff and kind of slow it down a little. This is the important part now. When you're looking at a new business model or changes in your business model, focus on what you're capable of doing. What are your underlying skills? What can I do? What does our company do? We know what kind of products and services we're doing today, but what is it we know about it? Old story, Honda Motor Company, way back when, in the 50s or so, what were they best at? Smaller engines. They were making, I think, for lawnmowers and motorcycles, I think was their big thing. So for them to make the next step into automobiles required more technology, but they built small cars initially because that's what they were good at. That was their capability. Looking what you know, what do your people know? You may be surprised when you start talking to your people. What are their hobbies? What do you serve? Look at resumes you've had. What do people do in their past life? I have a brother who started out life as a gym teacher, PE teacher, physical education. He was a trained teacher. He had a master's in teaching. World changed. There was actually an abundance of teachers at the time. So he went back and got a second bachelor's degree in computer science. Years later, he's now at Cisco. And what's he doing? He was a training manager. He was a teacher. And those skills transferred over with his computer science skills and experience, his academic education, his formal 20 years or so of experience, made him good at this kind of teaching because that's what he did. And he was very good at it. So engagement, number 2 is to serve. And the third is to learn. Fundamental to being a leader, fundamental to being any kind of management position, fundamental to being anything in the world is learning, your ability to learn. Ability to learn and your desire to learn. So you're looking for information and data. That means reading and talking to all of your people at all levels of the organization. People have different perspectives. They'll see things you may not. Talk to your customers and vendors. Talk to people in other industries. What else are other people doing? What are you doing in this industry? What's your problem? Well, I can't reach my customers. They won't meet with me in person. So what are you doing? Different kinds of industries. Challenge the wisdom, the current wisdom. Well, this is the way it has to be done. This is the way it's always been done. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. That gets me screamingly crazy. I was on a board of a nonprofit once, and that's when a very influential board member started going down. Well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Oh, God, I almost blew a gasket because the problem was it was broken. And he would refuse to recognize it. And enough others refused to recognize it. They did not fix it. P.S. The organization basically is down and out. I like the theme from the Star Trek method came to mind. To explore, to seek out the new, to boldly venture out. And go where no man has gone before, no person has gone before. Always looking around. You don't know where your ideas are going to come from. And it's not a directly transferable idea. It inspires you, gets you thinking about different things. And that's why as a leader, you read. You need to learn to read and be reading stuff. And not just necessarily your industry and business, but across the board. You're faced now with tough choices. You need cash in somehow. So if you can ship. If you've got a new product going, is it at least viable enough in order to safely ship out? Stretch out your payments as much as possible. You landlords are going to flip. Look, I can't give you 100%. I can give you 70%. I will guarantee you the 70% every month, and we'll work out and catching up later. There are others who you can delay. Give them 50% of it. What do they really need? Vendors. What do they really need to keep afloat? Because you need your vendors and suppliers afloat too. Really now, all those critical expenses, focus on the critical. And there's a lot of things that are nice. Now, things like coffee, maybe even some snacks, while it's not quote unquote critical, I'd argue, yeah, kind of is. And don't cheap out on it. It's pull out of your own pocket if you have to. If it's a small enough office, bring in a box of donuts and good donuts. Like once every 2 weeks or so. Just kind of randomly show up with it. Bring in pizza. Hey, everybody, we're having a meeting today. Lunch is on the house. Lunch is on me. Pull it out. Even if you're in a management position, you can't expense it. Sometimes you pull it out. Pull out a 20, pull out a 50. Yes, it's not cheap. Everybody's got their financial stresses. But sometimes you do this for the team. If you need to cut as a general comment, you want to cut once and it hurts and it's disruptive, but rather than having these incremental cuts. It's not good anyway. And this is why you need to be honest and talking to your people. This is where we stand. This is what we're seeing. Talk to them, listen to them as well. And if you need to make staff cuts, do it. But leave the door open, if possible, that you can hire somebody back later. Yes, I have to let you go now. I've cut the contributions to 401ks. I have cut certain other kinds of benefits, which are optional, such as education expenses. But, executive salaries have been cut. I personally, perhaps, have reduced by 50% or to zero. The CEO of Delta Airlines initially said not taking salary for 6 months. We'll see. He's not at 6 months yet to see what happens later. Now, the bulk of his income comes from from stock and other kinds of bonuses like that. Whether he'll be getting or not is up in the air. But the fact is, he made a statement very early on. And I've seen this from other executives as well. At the medical university here where I live in Charleston, South Carolina, 10 years ago, there was staff was being furloughed. The president and CEO was not covered by that. There were like 3 different funding sources for the medical university. Long story short. But the CEO said, yes, he's going to take his furloughed paydays. But he, just like everybody, even though he technically wasn't covered by it, but he will be working anyway because he's the CEO, he's a leader, and that's what you do. And there's any other government relief available and appropriate, yes, it may be appropriate to fill out the paperwork and see about it. If you have lines of credit, if you need to tap it, if it's possible this may be a time to talk to your banker. Can we extend our line of credit? Can we be on standby for an increase? What would it take? What are you guys looking for? They have their own problems, so be sympathetic with them. So while all this is going on, you're making these managerial cuts now, you're strategically looking at the future. So what is new normal is going to be? This is going to be very different. So I can give you some guidance, which I hope we're giving here is how to approach this, but this is a very one-to-one. The forces out there, you're looking at the political forces, economic, how our economies want. That's why you talk to people, to get the kinds of information. Will people be out socializing? Are they going to be reluctant to go out and socialize? What does that mean? Again, the idea of digital comfort, people more comfortable doing, more people are comfortable doing Zoom meeting with Zoom, Teams, whatever, video conferencing. How does this impact? Well, if you're selling, maybe this can work. This can work going forward. I believe there's some degree of pent-up demand, but by the same token, consumers are going to be discerning and are going to be smartly, I hope, being very financial frugal going forward. I think there'll be a lot of retail stores, which I've been thinking this for a long time and saying this for a long time. There are a number of retail stores and smaller restaurants, which is going to go. These chain restaurants, they're dime a dozen, they're crap. Nobody cares. We buy a lot of crap in this country. So we just stop buying crap and start focusing on more value. So all these markets are changing. And in all this going on, we've got an aging population. You have people who will be forced into retirement and drawing on the retirement. There are people who are delaying retirement if they possibly can. And this streams all the way down to our youngest coming out of high school, coming out of college, and the job opportunities for them. Are they going to be buying houses? Are they going to be renting? So here's my takeaway. 5 action plans today. The 3 themes of the focus is engage, serve, and learn. Going forward, the key word is ambidexterity, the agility. You're looking at today and you're working towards the future, future-oriented. So you get in front of people. You're intensive about gathering information and data, talking to people, work those phones, get on your video calls, organize video coffee call with a couple of business people. Kind of an informal business networking group. Call it what you want. It doesn't have to be fancy. Just call some friends up. Hey, or people you kind of, hey, you feel like chatting? Let's virtually get a cup of coffee. Talk to your people, delegate, and empower them. You monitor them. If you're physically together or on a video call, if you're doing it by video, if they're remote, talk to them 5 minutes once a day or so, once every other day. What's going on? What are you hearing? Any challenges here? Oh, how did it work with such and such a client? How'd you make out with them? Oh yeah, I got it. Really interesting. Sometimes it can be this. They can be a little tough, but okay, that's great. Talk to me. And you really need to be supportive of your people, because if you're supportive, if they know they're safe, they're scared too, they'll do a lot. They'll step up and they'll tell you. Now you're looking at transformation. You're looking at innovation. Innovation is in how you do your business and how you go about providing your products and services, as well as what you're providing. So this is where you begin to look around and seeing, how can we make this different? What might be different? How can I make this better? Well, I know we've been doing this. We've invested in all this. Well, maybe we need to make a change, or what are we going to do for an encore? What else can we do with that project and make it different? And all this is going on, you're going to be iterating and things moving along, and things will be adjust as you get more information. Observe, orient, decide, act. And as you're orienting, you're getting more information, you're adjusting your decisions. So make your decisions thoughtfully in this kind of situation. Be prepared and share with your people and reinforce this. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to fix them, and we're going to make changes, and we're going to move forward. You cannot be landing on people if mistakes get made, because mistakes will be made. That's life. Nobody can predict what happens. And in business, we're dealing with risk, and uncertainty is a given. And have what's military, again, it's a term borrowed from the military, after action reviews, learning from it. What went wrong? What went right? What went wrong? Let's move on. Where's our future? So you don't want to you look to the past enough to learn, and you pivot and look to the future. All right, where are we going? What are we going to do? How are we going to make this happen? I hope this helps a bit. My name is Peter Lucash. I am resident in Charleston, South Carolina. At this point, I am virtual based, but as we open up, I will be happily being on an airplane. There's a number of areas which I can help with. One is these are workshops which are supposed to be, the idea was going to be developed and delivered in person, but I'm rapidly shifting to online. Now, I've been teaching online for several universities, including Northeastern and Washington State University, for about 20 years now. So this is not new to me in that sense. But there are differences when you work online versus ground. I've taught both ground and online. I love ground because of the immediacy of the interaction, and online has gotten better, more sophisticated because of the capability of video and the power and the strength and capability of the infrastructure to handle more powerful and higher definition online experience than was possible 15, 20 years ago. So I'm moving towards more of that and doing more of that. One is business acumen. You have people with technical knowledge, great technical skills, but surprisingly really don't understand as much as they should how business works. Business acumen. Working on a specific program right now, hope to release within the next couple of weeks, on finding new opportunities. In this world where I was talking about finding new opportunities, well, how you go about it. It's not sitting around brainstorming, trying to think, a great idea is going to happen. There's sort of some methods you can use to help come up with new ideas. Business strategy, how this works. And this one is going to the idea of the reset economy is taking another turn. So what was a pretty well-developed program is being redone because we have a really reset our economy and our business going forward. The path will not be smooth. The path will be this kind of squiggly line, but somehow you'll come out in the end and doing well, I believe. If I can help, please shoot me an email, peter@digitalcpe.com or peter@lucash.com. Both of those are read by me. And yes, I absolutely do not share, sell, or anything else to other parties, and will not be harassing you. I appreciate any thoughts, comments, any insights. Would be happy to share with folks. And again, you caught me. I was caught with this. Just as building up my own business and getting ready to launch, my website should be fully functional within days. Again, peter@digitalcpe.com. That stands for continuing professional education, really applicable to accountants and the like, as well as peter@lucash.com. And if you Google me, you will find multiple listings from me. All my emails end up in the same place, so I'll be happy to respond to people going forward. Hope this helps. You all have a great day now, and best wishes, and stay safe.